Good morning, church. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Amen, amen, amen. It's a beautiful day outside. The sun's on its way up. It's early in the morning for me. Some of you might be getting up, getting ready to go to work. Those of you that are lucky enough to have employment, those of you that are looking, I pray that you find. Those of you that don't want to work, I pray that you find a way to make income without having to work. Should have bought a Hyundai, but instead I bought a Kia. Amen, amen, amen. But today's video is different because my boo thing's not here. But it comes from me watching a video from my brother Highs with Low here on YouTube and all social media. Highs with Low. He put out a video the other day on accountability, and you know, he referenced it about, you know, the relationships that you have, you know, the people in your life that, you know, do you have anyone in your life that holds you accountable, and how do you receive accountability? And it got me thinking about, you know, my marriage and how I show up in my marriage in the terms of being accountable. I know we've been doing this for a long time, you know, 20 years married, over 20 years in a relationship. I mean, we grew up together. You talking about somebody that met, you know, we met early. You know, but I say that to say, you know, and early on, and even up until, you know, not but what, a couple years ago, it could be argued, even though I would like to, you know, say that I am, you know, the perfect person, the perfect husband. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, as the things say, I am a good man, Savannah. That's how I like to represent myself. But I mean, you have to be truthful as in terms of accountability. I have not always been who I needed to be in my relationships. And, you know, and just like, you know, Lowe's wife said to him, you know, your spouse is like holding a mirror up to you because they know you better than anyone else. And, you know, my wife always likes to, you know, she like to throw shots sometimes, you know, calling me. She called me out and she said, I always try to represent myself as if I'm perfect. And, you know, I don't purposely do it, you know, if that be the case. But, you know, I mean, that's how she sees it. And I don't always, like I said, I don't always show up, you know, in the best of lights, you know, and I'm stubborn as hell. I know I am. I admit it. That is the truth. And I don't like, you know, I don't like to fail, but I also like to, I like to, you know, try to keep people out my business. So I guess that do show that, you know, it shows people on the outside that, you know, everything's good, you know, everything's going well, and there is no problems. But, you know, and that's not always the case, you know, because behind closed doors, you could be fussing and fighting and tearing up the house. The house can look good on the outside, grass cut, you know, bushes trimmed real nice, you know, you done had your siding power washed, and your driveway's been cleaned up and all that. Ain't no trash nowhere in the streets, but on the inside, like a tornado done ran through that thing. Holes in the wall, dishes in the sink, ain't been cleaned, trash ain't been taken out, you know. You know, you got bad, spoiled food in the refrigerator, dirty clothes on the floor, not in the hamper, you know what I'm saying? Like, stuff like that. That could be a representation of your life and how your relationships are. So, I think that, you know, me and the wife, I think this is a good conversation for us to have. And you know, and I appreciate Lo for, you know, for pointing that out about accountability, because it's real. Who are you in your life, and how do you show up to other people. And if they try to hold you accountable, how do you receive it? Yeah, it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good, but it's growth. And growth is never comfortable. Growth never feels good, because growing is stretching. It's a change, and change is uncomfortable. Stretching is uncomfortable. There could be a little pain in there, especially if if you haven't stretched in a while. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a conversation that we're going to come back and we're going to revisit. And I appreciate my brother for that. They have starting that conversation, because I think it's something that's needed. So, and on that note, you know what I'm saying? May the Lord keep you.